ก็ชอบอยู่ดีมาดี
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats. Dear colleagues, dear friends, please take your seats. We're about to start. Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. We're about to start. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear friends. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to declare open the second part of the fifth session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to develop an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including the marine environment, and I call to order this fifth plenary meeting. Excellencias,
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, observers, colleagues, and dear friends, I would like to begin my statement by addressing you in my mother tongue, Spanish, in order to warmly welcome you to the Palace of Nations for the resumed fifth session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. The Palace of Nations is a historic venue which was built to provide a home to the ideals of peace, freedom and cooperation among nations, and has witnessed key moments of multilateral diplomacy. Thus, we are in an enabling environment so that our will to work will translate into positive outcomes. Please allow me to begin by extending heartfelt thanks to those whose commitment and dedication has brought us to this critical moment. To Inga Anderson, Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, for her constant guidance and unwavering defence of environmental multilateralism. Thank you very much, Madam Executive Director. To Jyoti Mata Philip, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, and her outstanding team, thank you for supporting this process with professionalism, transparency, and tireless dedication. Thank you so much, Jyoti. And to Katrin Schneeberger, Director of the Swiss Federal Office for the Environment, thank you for your generous welcome to Geneva, the bulwark of multilateralism and cooperation amongst peoples, and for your country's support throughout this process. I would also like to acknowledge the constant support of UNEP staff, the INC Secretariat, and the United Nations office at Geneva. Your logistic and technical support has provided us with the necessary foundations for fruitful work. Thank you so much for that. I would also like to welcome observers participating in this meeting. I'd like to thank you for your valuable perspectives, technical skills, and innovative ideas. You represent civil society, industry, science, and communities throughout the world, including indigenous peoples. And it are your voices that ensure the credibility and inclusion of this process. I'd like to encourage you to continue your vital role, not only as observers, but as active participants, as your contributions will help delegations build bridges and overcome differences. And lastly, but certainly not least, given your most relevant role in this collective effort, I would like to thank the member states represented here through your delegations. This is a negotiation among states. You are at the very heart of this process. You're the ones taking the decisions. Let's not forget that. And that means, as the Latin thinker said, a huge right, but at the same time, a colossal responsibility. I would like to acknowledge your original decision, because all of you adopted the initial mandate through Resolution 5/14 of the United Nations Environment Assembly, which triggered this process. We know we still have a lot of work to do, and I don't want to underestimate how complex it will be, but we have already found significant points of convergence on difficult subjects, but there are still some outstanding differences of opinion. Nevertheless, I trust that there will be enough political will to overcome them, the same will that has helped us make progress in our work and brought us to the brink of a historic moment. Please allow me now to continue my statement in English.
Dear colleagues, we have come to Geneva with a shared vision to finish the work we start together and to fulfill the mandate given to us under UNEP Resolution 514. For the first time in history, the world is within a reach of a legally binding international instrument to end plastic pollution. This is a challenging task, but a deeply necessary one. We are facing a global crisis. Plastic pollution is damaging ecosystems, polluting our oceans and rivers, threatening biodiversity, harming human health, and unfairly impacting the most vulnerable. The urgency is real, the evidence is clear, and the responsibility is on us. We understand how we arrived to this point. A natural disaster did not cause this crisis. It is mainly an unintended result, since we are pretty sure nobody wants plastic pollution. Still, we have not been able to find a systematic and an effective way to stop it. Pollution results from our decisions, habits, and systems that have persisted because we have been unable to find ways to control it. Since it is a human-made crisis, it must be tackled through human effort and global cooperation. We are supported by the best available science, which clearly shows that an effective international framework for cooperation and accountability, one that adopts a comprehensive approach throughout the life cycle of plastics, can significantly reduce plastic pollution and provide great benefits for both the environment and public health. You, member states, have the mandate, information, and authority to act. You understand your national priorities, your red lines, and constraints. This moment demands concrete and meaningful progress, not maximalist positions, but joint solutions, not finger-pointing, but pragmatic engagement. This moment calls for a recognition that the common good does not conflict with national interests, but instead arises from a careful and courageous balance between them. Since the first part of these sessions ended, I have worked closely with the Bureau and the Secretariat to develop a clear, organized, and tailored work plan that meets our needs at this stage. This plan aims to help you make rapid progress and complete the negotiations process by August 14, leading to an effective agreement. I thank you for your support to the Chair's scenario note, published on July 11. It outlines a practical approach designed to enable a steadfast advance, encourage collective ownership, and lead to concrete outcomes. Success will not rely only on plans. It will depend on how we leverage those plans to work together efficiently, starting today. The early days of these resumed sessions are crucial. They should be marked by engagement, urgency, and a shared understanding that every hour matters. These days will set the rhythm, tone, and foundation for the final push toward achieving a successful conclusion. I urge delegations once again to approach this meeting with a spirit of collaborative engagement and increased ownership of the text. Remember, we are not just reviewing a document, we are setting the foundations for a global tool that could change the future of environmental history. And I must say, I'm confident in your constructive and intelligent contribution assignment. You are professional negotiators, experienced diplomats, and representatives of countries committed to a better future. I have full confidence in your ability to rise to this challenge. I believe in your capacity to achieve meaningful results this week and beyond, to refine the text and to find workable solutions to the most difficult remaining issues. I also want to thank and recognize the great work of our Bureau members and co-chairs of the contact groups. They have been taking on a demanding responsibility, and I trust their ability to lead productive, solution-focused discussions. I encourage delegations to support our co-chairs' efforts and empower them to help us find common ground, reach agreements, and move the process forward in good faith. Colleagues, allow me to recall a fact that I believe is clear to all of us. Time is of the essence. The world awaits substantial news from Geneva. People across continents are watching us with hope. They relied on this process to deliver not just promises, but real results. Let's see August 14 not as a deadline, but as a day of achievement. We need to complete a historic task by August 14 with an agreement that is effective, inclusive, implementable, and capable to evolving. I know that this won't be easy, but history is not built on comfort. It is built on courage, teamwork, and compromises. Together, we can make this meeting truly significant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to invite the Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Program, Ms. Inger Anderson, to deliver her opening remarks.
Good morning. And let me start also by thanking you, dear Chair, Ambassador Luis Valdivieso, for your extraordinary leadership. We would not be here, we would not have reached as far as we have without it. Let me also thank you, dear Catherine Schneeberger, State Secretary, for opening the doors and the warm welcome that we have received here in beautiful Geneva and in beautiful Switzerland. And of course, let me thank my dear colleague, Diotimato Philip, the Executive Secretary, who has been leading this, and of course, all the many colleagues behind her. But most of all, allow me to thank you, delegates, who have worked so hard to get us to this place. Also allow me to express appreciation to observers for their engagement throughout. So together, we stand here with a warm welcome to this resumed session of the negotiation of the legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. And my deep thanks to all for all the efforts that have gotten us here. Because almost 3.5 years have passed since that historic adoption at the United Nations Environment Assembly Resolution 5.14 in 2022. And it's now high time for member states to get the deal over the line. And today, this means, of course, rolling up our collective sleeves, so to speak, and getting into the contact groups. And therefore, I will be brief. You faced 10 days of intensive negotiations. You know this, and you know that you will have to work with hard work and long nights and determination, as you have done in all the other sessions before. And you also know that this will require the spirit of solidarity and compromise and understanding, as you have done before. But I believe, truly believe, that you can leave Geneva with a treaty gavelled. Because since Busan, you have enabled a real surge in diplomacy. You've been engaging with one another in informal settings, in bilaterals, in regional and consultations, across the regions and across viewpoints. And that has forged approaches, ideas, and yes, solution. And that engagement has been critical to getting us where we are today, as is indeed the most intense process of preparation that I have ever seen, demonstrating that member states who have joined as members of this process really want this treaty. So I thank you for this productive diplomacy, which has begun to carve out a path to a possible agreement. Now, I do accept that this path is narrow and at times a bit precarious, with a steep drop on either side, but we are here in the Alpine country, where we're used to steep drops. So let us find a way, let us bind together to navigate this path. The only way to reach destination is by going together. I'm always inspired as I enter these halls here in Geneva. This city is the birthplace of modern multilateralism. And while the setup of the League of Nations was far from ideal, and while many voices were excluded and unrepresented, this city set in motion and saw the setting in motion of this noble notion that countries can come together to solve problems. And as we look out on the soaring heights of the Alps, Let us reach for those heights as we take inspiration from the past, but build and shape for the future. I also invite you to draw inspiration from the establishment of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, which could provide important science for the Treaty on Plastic Pollution. By agreeing to this panel in Punta del Este just 2 months ago, member states proved yet again that multilateralism delivers, and now it's your turn. As you get down to negotiating, I remind you that, which you know, that the world wants you to succeed. The world wants and needs to tackle plastic pollution crisis. People are frankly outraged by the plastic in their environment. They are worried, they are watching, and rightly so. Plastic pollution is already in nature, in our oceans, and in our bloodstreams, and the plastic leakage to the environment is predicted to grow. And if we continue as we are right now, then we will see plastic pollution growing even more, with significant consequences for the environment, for economy, as yet indeed for human health. I know that you know this, and I also know that you know that it is in your hands to get this done and make sure that we get this treaty gavelled. It is in your hands to protect ourselves, the environment, and future generations. It is in your hands to turn the plastics pollution challenge into an opportunity of solutions and new beginnings. And I want to assure you that we at UNEP, we will be there to support you. But ultimately, of course, the path is paved by you. So I ask you to reach across the aisle and start crafting the chair's text into that final agreement. One that draws on the many areas of convergence, one that starts with real strength, but also includes the hooks for future developments, and one that sets the world on a path to end plastic pollution forever. Thank you.
I thank the Executive Director of UNEP for her remarks. I have now the pleasure of inviting the Director of the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland, Ms. Katrin Schneeberger, our host country, to deliver her opening remarks. Please.
Mr. Chair, Madam Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, dear Inger, Madam Executive Secretary of the INC on Plastic Pollution, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. It is a great pleasure for Switzerland to host these pivotal negotiations with the objective of finalizing a treaty text to put an end to plastic pollution. I am delighted to welcome you to Geneva, a city that embodies dialogue, cooperation, and a commitment to multilateralism. Geneva is a global hub for environmental governance, particularly in the field of chemicals and waste. The reason that brings us together is clear. We want to end plastic pollution. We want to protect human health and our environment. And we want to do that now. However, we must also acknowledge that multilateralism is facing challenges. Geopolitical tensions and financial crises can sometimes hinder our ability to act collectively. Let's demonstrate to the world that multilateralism is effective. Let's demonstrate to the world that countries are willing to find sustainable solutions. And let's write history again in the Palais des Nations. Excellencies, dear colleagues, writing history means engaging constructively, taking collective action and delivering concrete results. In the coming days, we have the opportunity to do just that. By negotiating core elements of an effective plastics treaty and by finding comprehensive solutions and measures across the full life cycle of plastics to address plastic pollution effectively. But in doing so, we must bear one fundamental fact in mind. Plastic pollution knows no borders. It is what we call transboundary pollution. It moves with rivers, oceans, wind, and trade. What is produced and discarded in one country can have devastating consequences thousands of kilometers away, harming ecosystems and communities that played no part in its creation. Because of its transboundary nature, plastic pollution cannot be addressed by any one country alone. Even the most ambitious national policies will fall short unless they form part of a coherent and coordinated global effort. This is why we need a legally binding international treaty, a treaty that is inclusive, science-based, and robust. A treaty that unites all countries around shared objectives and responsibilities. And a treaty that supports implementation on the ground. Plastic pollution is a global problem that demands a global solution. Dear colleagues, all eyes are on Geneva as we work to deliver a historic outcome. A successful INC-5.2 will not only be essential to mitigate the environmental, social, and economic threats posed by plastic pollution, but it will also send a strong signal for multilateralism. In this context, Geneva's existing expertise and structure are significant. I wish us productive negotiations, a spirit of openness, and a session that raises to meet the urgency of the challenges before us and the hopes that bring us together. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the Director of the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland for her remarks. And now I would like to invite our Executive Secretary, Ms. Jyoti Mathur-Philip, to provide her opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Ambassador Luis Valles Valdivieso, Chair of the INC, Ms. Inger Anderson, Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme and Under-Secretary General of the UN, Excellency Ms. Catherine Scheenberger, Director of Switzerland's Federal Office for the Environment, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. It is an honor to welcome you to the resumed 5th session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution. I begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to Switzerland for hosting us for INC 5.2. I would also like to express my appreciation to our colleagues here at the UN Office of Geneva for their incredible support and tireless efforts in facilitating the arrangements that have made this session possible. My deepest gratitude to the chair of the INC for his leadership throughout his mandate since taking this very difficult mantle at INC-3 in Nairobi in 2023, and to his incredible team too. Thank you. I would also like to thank Ambassador Gustavo Meza Quadra for his leadership till INC-3. And of course, my deepest thank you to Ms. Anderson for her guiding hand, keeping us steady through all the turbulent and calm waters over the last 3 years. From UNEA 5.2, where this historic process began, to INC 5.2, we see not only symmetry in numbers, but also in our strengthened resolve. What was set in motion in Nairobi has weathered complexities, moments of challenge, and hard-won progress. And it is precisely this shared endurance that strengthens our resolve and brings us determined and forward-looking to this historic hall today and the birthplace of modern multilateralism. I'm deeply grateful to the members of the committee for your steadfast commitment over the past 3 years. My gratitude also extends to observer organizations whose ongoing engagement, deep expertise, and valuable insights reinforce the essential importance of inclusive and collaborative environmental multilateralism. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge with great appreciation the donors whose generous voluntary contributions have been indispensable to the work of the INC and its sessions, and including the intersessional work and head of delegation meetings. Our thanks go to the governments of Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Japan, Monaco, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, the Republic of Korea, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and to the European Commission. Thank you so much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we are a large group here these next 10 days. We have arrived here in Geneva with over 3,700 participants from 184 members of the committee and 619 observer organizations registered to attend INC 5.2. Once again, I am proud to say that we have brought together an experienced team from many different UNEP divisions, multilateral environment agreements, and of course, the conference services and UN security teams to support this session alongside the extremely dedicated colleagues of the INC Secretariat. On this note, may I also remind you that the UN Code of Conduct applies to all UN meetings, and you will find this conduct available on the website. As always, you have our full support, the team's full support that is here to help you over the next 2 days. And being hosted at the Palais des Nations situates INC 5.2 within a long tradition of crucial multilateral negotiations, diplomatic breakthroughs, and international legal frameworks. It is my hope that this session will now also be part of that legacy. And as I know you are impatient to start work, I will conclude by inviting you to envision 15th of August, a day when the world awakens, unified with an international instrument to end plastic pollution, crafted through our collective determination, dialogue, and shared commitment over these past 3 years. I hope this vision will be able to guide you over the next days. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Secretary. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Before I close this opening segment, I would like to voice my appreciation to Ms. Asha Challenger for her work as rapporteur of our process. Thank you, dear Asha. That said, please allow a 5-minute break for our dignitaries to leave the podium, and distinguished delegates, please remain seated. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Could you please take your seats? Thank you, dear colleagues. please take your seats. We are going to start our meeting or restart our meeting. Please take your seats. Distinguished delegates, further to my consultations with members during the informal heads of delegation meeting and the regional consultations, and as I have outlined in my scenario note, I invite members, regional groups, and groups of members to submit any statement by writing through the INC in-session document platform, which is now available. This is in the interest, this is in the interest of time and with the firm conviction that our work in the contact groups needs to have as much time as possible. Furthermore, I strongly believe that specific and technical interventions by members can be made most effectively in the contact groups. Before we proceed with the next agenda item, I would like to invite the Secretariat to provide some logistical information. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, the plenary session is being live-streamed into rooms 18 and 19 in all UN official languages to accommodate the overflow from the Assembly Hall. Both these rooms are located in Building E. The plenary meetings can be followed via the live stream on the UN Web TV. Live stream links are available on the INC-5.2 webpage. Regarding the use of microphones on the plenary floor, to request the floor, please press the button on the microphone once. The light will turn green. When the chair gives you the floor, the technician will turn on your microphone and the light will turn red. A timer will be displayed on the screen. Delegates are kindly requested to adhere to the allotted time when taking the floor. Please speak clearly and in dictation speed to facilitate interpretation. As per the chair's scenario note, written statements in PDF format can be uploaded to the in-session documents platform and will in turn be published on the INC website. Guidance on the use of the platform is available in the instruction manual previously shared with delegations. The in-session documents platform will be open this morning and will close by close of business on Thursday, 7th August. Dedicated seating for observers in plenary will be available on first-come, first-served basis. Therefore, observers are kindly requested to coordinate amongst themselves so that those who would like to speak are given priority access to the plenary floor to deliver their statement. For time efficiency, observers are encouraged to deliver joint statements on behalf of alliances, coalitions, and groups. We will be operating a dedicated queuing system for observers' interventions using a QR code. Instructions on how to use this system have been made available on the dedicated observer seats on the ground floor of this plenary hall. Meeting documents are available on the INC 5.2 webpage. A live daily schedule is accessible via the Plastic Pollution Negotiations mobile app, as well as on the INC 5.2 website. Delegations are encouraged to download this app. The same schedule will appear on the electronic screens inside the venue. We wish to remind you that the Swiss Federal Council, the State Council of the Republic and Canton of Geneva, and the Executive Council of the City of Geneva will be hosting a welcome reception this evening from 6:15 p.m., which will be held directly behind this Assembly Hall in the Cour du Nord. Finally, a few words on our venue. The venue will be accessible between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. Members of the committee can access the venue via the Peace Gate between 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. daily. After 8 p.m., no entry is allowed, and exit is only possible via the Preny Gate. More detailed information can be found in the INC 5.2 information note for participants. The schedule for payment of DSA for funded delegates is available in the INC 5.2 information note for participants as well. The name of the open Wi-Fi network in the venue is the public-Wi-Fi UNOG. Lunch breaks are scheduled every day from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. There are catering facilities in Building A and Building E. The list of the opening hours of each catering point is available in the INC-5.2 information note for participants, as well as in the mobile app under information. Delegates are reminded that food and drinks are strictly not allowed in any of the meeting rooms in this venue. Bottled water with the necessary precaution are permitted. The tap water in the venue is safe to drink and poses no health risks. Delegates can therefore use tap water to refill their bottles. A lost and found counter is located at the reception desk of Building E. This meeting is striving to be single-use plastics free. We call on you delegates to also do your part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank you, Secretariat. And this concludes our consideration of Agenda Item 1. Distinguished delegates, the committee will now resume its consideration of Agenda Item 3C on the organization of work. You will recall the committee considered Sub-Item 3B on the adoption of agenda for this session during the first part of the fifth session. The committee adopted the agenda for the session as contained in document UNEP/PP/INC.5/1, which has now been issued as document UNEP/PP/INC.1/1/Rev.1. The annotated agenda for the second part of the session has been issued as document UNEP/PP/INC.5/1/Rev.1/@.1. You will also recall that the committee considered Agenda Item 2 on the election of officers and elected a vice chair from the Asia-Pacific States Group. I'm pleased to inform you that at this stage, there are no further developments under this agenda item. With that regard, the Agenda Item 3A on the adoption of the rules of procedure, you will recall that we also considered this item at the beginning of our session 5th, and there are no new developments under this item. I want to recall that in accordance with the decision of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee at its first session, the draft rules of procedure as set out in the document UNEP/PP/INC.5/3 continue to apply to its work on provisional basis, with the exception of the bracket text in Rule 37. You will also recall that at the second session, the committee decided to adopt the following interpretive statement relating to Rule 38, Paragraph 1, on the draft rules of procedure. The Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee understands that, based on discussions on the draft rules of procedure for the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, there are differing views among Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee members on Rule 38, Paragraph 1, and its reflection in the report of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on the work of its first session. Therefore, the provisional application of Rule 38, Paragraph 1 of the draft rules of procedure has been a subject of debate. In the event that Rule 38, Paragraph 1 is invoked before the rules are formally adopted, members will recall this lack of agreement. I trust that we will complete our work here in Geneva in a spirit of good faith and cooperation. I count on your support to ensure that we can work together constructively and effectively. Distinguished delegates, I will now outline the organization of work for the second part of the fifth session as contained in the scenario note for the resumed session issued as document UNEP/PP/INC.5/INF/13. Given the limited amount of time available to us at this resume session for the completion of our negotiation process, it is essential that we organize our work with the aim to promoting a successful session that delivers on the mandate of UNEA Resolution 514. Our entire approach to the organization of our work must be guided by the objective of completing our negotiations by achieving agreement on the text of an international legally binding instrument and identifying any issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference. We should focus on bridging remaining gaps, resolving differences, and finding a common way forward in achieving agreement on the text of the instrument. The committee might also wish to consider reflecting in the report of the session any issues that might need to be considered by the Conference of the Party. I have been consulting with members, including through regular Bureau meetings and the informal heads of delegation meetings on 30 June to 2 July 2025 and on July 18 on the most effective way to organize our work to support the finalization of the text of the instrument at this resume session. Based on these consultations and our common objectives, I'm proposing the organization of work as follows. As you will recall, the committee agreed that the draft text circulated by the chair on 1st December last year will be used as the starting point for negotiation of the future instrument at the resume session. This is without prejudice of the right of any member to propose additions, deletions, or modifications to the text during the session, and that the negotiations will be conducted on the basis of the principle of that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. I would therefore like to emphasize and make it clear from the outset that the starting point for the negotiations in the contact groups is the draft text that was circulated on 1st December. Distinguished delegates, let me first address the contact groups. As you will recall, during the first part of the session in Busan, the committee established 4 contact groups, each with a clear, defined mandate covering specific clusters of issues and appointed their respective co-chairs. I propose that these 4 contact groups continue their work at this resume session. The mandates of the contact groups remain generally as agreed at the starting of our session in Busan, with one fine-tuning based on the consultations we had during the formal heads of delegation meeting and with the Bureau, and as outlined in my scenario note. I have also noted in my scenario note that 2 of the co-chairs originally appointed in the first part of the session to facilitate the contact groups are no longer available to serve in this capacity. I wish to take this opportunity to extend my appreciation to Mr. Boachi of Ghana and Ms. Min Young of the Republic of Korea for their contribution to the work of the committee in their capacity as contact group co-chairs. After consultations, I propose that the committee appoint Mr. Peter Justice Derry of Ghana as co-chair of Contact Group 2, and Mr. Go Kobayashi of Japan as co-chair of Contact Group 4. Thus, the co-chairs of the contact groups will be as follows. Contact Group 1 will be co-chaired by Mr. Axel Borgmann of Germany and Ms. Maria Angelica Ikeda of Brazil. Contact Group 2 will be co-chaired by Ms. Tulia Toika of Finland and Mr. Peter Derry of Ghana. Contact Group 3 will be co-chaired by Ms. Kate Lynch of Australia and Ms. Gwen Caesar of Palau. And Contact Group 4 will be co-chaired by Mr. Linroy Christian of Antigua and Barbuda and Mr. Go Kobayashi of Japan. I trust that you will join me in extending your full support to these co-chairs who will guide the contact group's work over the coming days. I hope this is agreeable to everyone. Thank you very much. I wish to congratulate, therefore, Mr. Derry of Ghana and Mr. Kobayashi of Japan on their appointment as co-chairs. Congratulations. I also wish to extend my appreciation to all the other co-chairs for continuing to undertake this important task of facilitating our negotiations. For all issues within their mandate, the contact groups will first, conduct textual negotiations and make proposals for consideration of the committee. And second, time permitting, and if needed, identify any issues where relevant for consideration by the diplomatic conference. I would like to emphasize that the priority of our work this week is delivering concrete negotiation outcomes to finalize the text of the instrument. In undertaking the work and negotiating the text, the contact groups should use the relevant sections of the draft text circulated on 1st December as the starting point, and as relevant, refer to any bridging text proposals that have been made by members. The contact groups will be expected to regularly make available the text produced during the next 4 days. The outcomes from the contact groups as of Friday, 8th of August, will be assembled by the Secretariat into a single document, which will be made available for the plenary on Saturday, 9th August, as a conference room paper. Our interim goal is to have an assembled document ready by Friday, and I expect everyone to work towards this objective. For this assembled document, each contact group will be expected to present draft text that is as clean as possible across the articles within this mandate. Having gone through several iterations of compilation text during INCs 3, 4, and 5.1, at this stage, collective ownership needs to be the guiding light. Work in the contact groups must move in line with advancing the development of text with a view of reaching an agreement by the end of the resumed session. For these purposes of this assembled document, the contact groups are expected to provide by Friday evening, 8 August, a text of which there is convergence that could be forwarded by the plenary to the legal drafting group. B, any text requiring further work and its status, as well as proposed ways forward for resolving differences. And C, where relevant, any issue to be raised by the committee to consideration by the diplomatic conference. I would like to emphasize that this assembled document will provide a snapshot of the status of the negotiations and will not be the final document. Therefore, I do not expect any textual negotiations on this assembled document at the stocktake plenary meeting on Saturday. For the stocktake plenary, I have 3 expectations. Firstly, that the committee will be in a position to transmit a number of articles to the legal drafting group with the understanding that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. Secondly, that the committee will note articles that have overall convergence but still require some refinement before they can be transmitted to the legal drafting group. Lastly, that the committee will take note of the few articles with remaining open issues. With this in mind, I expect the committee will then be able to determine the most appropriate modalities of work to enable us to focus on critical issues and make the necessary progress to finalize the text. Each contact group should have the flexibility to organize its work in the most effective manner possible to foster convergence and further development the draft text of the instrument across all areas within its mandate. It will also be important to ensure a degree of consistency in the method of work across the contact groups. I request the co-chairs to provide clarity at the outset of their approach to the conduct of their work. To ensure that textual negotiations can progress as effectively as possible in the contact groups, it is important that the co-chairs actively facilitate the further development of texts, and it is also important that the text coming from the contact group to the plenary should have shared ownership by the group. Active engagement among members themselves, including through informal consultations to facilitate dialogue, explore solutions, and formulate possible landing zones, is essential. Any proposal presented during this resume session should be focusing on areas where open issues remain and should be aimed at bridging gaps and facilitating convergence. Members wishing to present such a bridging proposals for consideration in the relevant contact group are strongly encouraged to submit them jointly and after consultations with other members. For bridging proposals to be considered, they also need to be presented orally and negotiated in the contact groups. Bridging proposals might be submitted on the in-session document platform. As informed by the Secretariat, in the in-session document platform will open this morning and will close by close of business on Thursday, 7th of August. Contact groups should have the flexibility to resort to different working modalities as needed, including through informal settings, to develop texts that will bridge positions to achieve solutions. Any outcomes of such an informal work by members should be reported to the contact groups in full for its consideration. I'm aware that there are several cross-cutting issues that are related to a number of articles. I encourage contact groups to coordinate on such issues, including through the co-chairs and, when appropriate, in consultations with me, the chair. Turning now to the legal drafting group, I would like to remind delegates that this open-ended group established at our fourth session remains in place. Its mandate is to conduct a review of the draft text forward to it by the Committee for Legal Soundness and Consistency, and to provide recommendations on the wording without reopening substantive policy discussions. The committee also agreed that in its work, the legal drafting group will not consider policy issues, and any policy issues it might identify in the course of its work will be referred back to the committee. The meetings of the legal drafting group will be convened by the co-chairs, Ms. Annick Baudouin of Canada, Mr. Jean Kenfag of Cameroon and Mr. Eyad Al-Hubra of Saudi Arabia, as and when needed, to consider draft text referred to it by the committee. I would like to remind delegates that the legal drafting group is not a negotiating body, nor is it a decision-making body. What the group does is present recommendations on the legally sound wording for consideration by the committee in plenary. It is ultimately the committee that agrees on text. We should endeavor to refer draft text as early as possible to the legal drafting group. I, therefore, invite contact groups when working on the text during the next several days to flag in their reports to the plenary any provision that they consider sufficiently developed to be reviewed by the legal drafting group. I want to emphasize that forwarding text for legal review does not imply that this text is fully agreed. As always, we are guided by the principle that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. On the schedule for this resumed session, the overall plan for the week is annexed to my scenario note and has been published on the session website. 2 or more contact groups might also agree to jointly discuss matters within their respective mandates as needed. During our plenary meeting on Saturday morning, 9 August 2025, we will need to collectively take stock in light of the outcomes of the contact group's work in the first 4 days and assess the progress made. With that, we will consider any adjustments to the modalities of work to allow us to focus on avenues and options to achieve agreement on open issues. At this meeting on Saturday, each contact group will be expected to report on any draft text that could be referred to the legal drafting group and on the state of play of any outstanding issue within its mandate. I wish to reiterate that no more than 2 contact groups meetings will be scheduled in parallel. In addition, a schedule for days 1 to 4 has been published, while specific time periods are proposed to be tentatively allocated for meetings of each of the 4 contact groups up to including day 3, 7 August 2025. The exact schedule will need to be reviewed as negotiation progress to reflect the actual needs of each contact group on a daily basis. I have had numerous consultations on the schedule for this resumed session with members and regions. Based on those consultations, I have strived to allocate time in balanced manner across all contact groups. This schedule of contact groups meetings will be updated daily and made available on the website and through the app in the evening of the previous day. The next plenary is currently scheduled for Saturday, 9th of August. At this point, we might need to consider any adjustments to the modalities of work to allow us to focus on avenues and options to achieve agreement on open issues. There will also be the opportunity for plenary meetings to be convened over the course of the week as needed. Sunday, 10th August, is a reserved day without any formal meetings to allow for informal consultations among members. I encourage members to utilize this time to continue their informal dialogues and bridging proposals. I also encourage regions to make use of this time to consult amongst themselves and identify solutions to the remaining open issues. The schedule for Monday 11th through Thursday 14th of August will be developed over the course of the resumed session, taking into account the progress achieved to allow us to focus on outstanding issues to finalize the resumed sessions successfully. Under Agenda Item 4, I will also like to propose that during the plenary on Thursday, 14 August 2025, the committee considers the text of the instrument with a view of its formal approval. Next, let me outline the indicative plan for the remaining agenda items. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Next, let me outline the indicative plan for the remaining agenda items. It was good with the water. In the plenary of Thursday, 14 of August, we will also consider Agenda Item 5 on other matters. Should there be any issue that the committee might wish to refer for the consideration of the diplomatic conference for its consideration, this can be addressed under this agenda item. I will also invite the Executive Director of UNEP to inform the committee on the next steps regarding the diplomatic conference under this agenda item. Further, under this agenda item, I will invite the Secretariat to present the practice on how approved texts of treaties are reviewed for minor editorial adjustments, as well as the process through which all language versions can be verified. Should any member wish to raise any other matters under this item, I invite you to inform me at this plenary meeting. During the plenary meeting on Thursday, 14 of August, the committee will also consider Agenda Item 6 on the adoption of the report of the session. You will recall that at the end of the first part of the fifth session, the committee adopted the report for the first part of the session contained in document UNEP/PP/INC.5/8 on the basis of the draft report that had been circulated, on the understanding that the committee will be invited to adopt the remainder of the report once drafted and circulated to all members at the resumed fifth session. In this connection, the committee will be invited to consider and adopt the remainder of the report of the work of the first part of the fifth session under this agenda item and the draft report for the second part of the session, capturing the early parts of the proceedings and discussions during the resumed session. Finally, on Thursday, 14 August, the committee will consider Agenda Item 7 at the closing of the session. I believe that this mode of operation, built on the basis of discussions in the Bureau, dialogues with members, including in the informal heads of delegation meetings, will allow us to be most productive over the next 10 days. I take it that we can proceed together with the approach just outlined. Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Arab Group, I would like to make a statement regarding the working methods.
Change the language here. How do we do that? This one here? Okay. Okay. Please continue. I'm sorry for that.
السيد الرئيس لجنة التفاوض الدولية.
Chairman. Chair of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the 20 member states of the Arab group and over 440 million people, I have the honor to deliver this statement. We're convinced that the mandate in Resolution 5/14 is extremely important. It will allow us to work for a common goal. This means to tackle plastic pollution. This resolution is the basis for our work, and it recognizes the specific circumstances of developing countries and their level of development. The resolution also insists on common but differentiated responsibilities between developed and developing countries. It also considers certain circumstances as evoked in the Rio Declaration. With regard to our working methods, we're worried about Article 6. It has been included in the program of work for contact groups. This is despite repeated appeals from various groups, including some which are in favor of the article. We believe that we should put off discussion. This was also a call which was made during the meeting of heads of delegations. We do not agree with that article, but we respect your position, Chair, and we will participate in dates with a constructive spirit. But if we don't manage to reach a consensus on this issue, then we would like to make an appeal to the committee to swiftly move on with other issues instead of continuing our debates on more controversial issues. So we believe that we could deal with controversial issues in unofficial meetings instead of debating them in the contact groups. There, it's vital that we focus on getting work started. We believe that we must hold negotiations so that we can build trust between all parties. We would like to insist, in fact, on having a clear and transparent mechanism for organizing informal meetings. They would be organized by the parties and can play an important role. However, too many informal meetings could overburden delegations, particularly small delegations. This means to say that they would not be able to participate effectively. In addition, informal meetings should be organized bearing in mind the practicalities. There must be a clear timetable so that each and every one of us can take part. Furthermore, the Arab group would like to make another request. All contact group meetings should be concluded by 9 p.m. at the latest each day. This is extremely important for delegations that are small in number. This is because these delegations will have to tackle a number of challenges if they're to effectively participate in all meetings. If we have reasonable working hours, this means that we will be able to hold effective negotiations and ensure that there is effective and efficient participation by all delegations. This will enable us to achieve the best possible outcomes in these important negotiations. The Arab group stands ready to work constructively so that we can achieve a balanced and efficient treaty that will enable us to make progress for the benefit of all peoples of the world. Thank you very much.
There were no any questions. I thank you very much, Saudi Arabia. I now give the floor to Ghana. Please, Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I make this intervention on behalf of the African Group of Negotiators. Africa has requested multiple times for contact groups 1 and 3 not to meet or run simultaneously. Although the largest UN group, Africa remains a region of multiple small delegations, underfunded and overstretched. In the spirit of inclusivity and transparency, we demand our requests be taken into account and the schedule be adjusted accordingly to ensure that contact groups 1 and 3 do not meet simultaneously. Indeed, the AGN is unable to participate in the contact group discussions if this issue is not resolved. I thank you, Chair.
And I thank you very much, Ghana. Now I would like to give the floor to Marshall Islands, please.
I accidentally pressed the button, Chair. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry for that mistake. And now Angola, please. No, it's a mistake too. Something is happening. Let me check with the Secretariat because I have a list of speakers here. And, well, we will check immediately.
Yeah.
Now the list of speakers is gone. Sorry for that. I thank you very much, and I thank you very much for your comments and also for the constructive way that you are approaching to this session. We have worked actually quite hard on those schedules and trying to find the perfect balance and perfect weight also in sequencing the different articles. That's why we are presenting the schedule for the 2 first days, and as I have mentioned before, with the flexibility given in the contact groups also to discuss about this. What I will propose is to take the schedule as we have presented, and we will review and take, of course, into consideration the comments and also the proposals that you have presented from the African group to for the days after this the work, starting from day 3, and also we reconsider the schedule for tomorrow, actually for day 2, depending also seeing what you mentioned of not having those 2 contact groups at the same time, 1 and 3. So may I take that we could go on the schedule as it has been presented? Thank you very much. Ghana, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I do want to remind you that this request was made during the heads of delegations meeting because there was the same challenge. And I do recall that in plenary, you gave us your word that the co-facilitators will handle it during the contact group discussions. It never happened. It never happened, and the 2 groups met simultaneously. May I kindly request, Chair, that we get a resolution to this before we move into contact groups. I thank you.
And I thank you very much, Ghana. Yes, I think we can revise. Let me just give me some minutes to do so, and I come back to you. Thank you very much, dear colleagues, and thank you very much to the African group. My task as chair is also to give these possibilities and as a principle guiding our negotiations that you members feel comfortable in these negotiations and also in the contact groups. So we are working and we have a proposal. So contact group 1 and 3 won't meet at the same time. Instead, it will be contact group 2 and 3 meeting at the same time, and then contact group 1 and 4 meeting at the same time. So we change 3 for 4 today and also tomorrow. I hope that that will be agreeable for everyone.
We have Iran, and Brazil is voting.
Iran, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Iran, have you asked for the floor?
Yes, thank you very much.
Please, you have the floor.
Good morning, colleagues. Since this is the first time that we have the floor, we wish to appreciate you and also the INC Secretariat, as well as the government of Switzerland for giving us another opportunity to sit together and try to resolve the outstanding issues with the hope that we could conclude these negotiations in this conference. Since a part of my concerns have been raised previously by distinguished speakers of African group, Ghana, and also Saudi Arabia, I do not repeat them, and thank you very much for the resolution of simultaneously contact group meetings. My suggestion is with respect to diplomatic conference and the references for raising some issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference. Since the issues for consideration by the diplomatic conference should be limited to the areas agreed upon during INC-5.2, which need to be highlighted in the draft resolution. And such issues shall in no way determine any agenda, including the discussion on substantial issues between the diplomatic conference and the first COP meeting of the future instrument, and or prejudge the first COP decision on its priority areas of work, including establishment of any subsidiary bodies, annexes, list of possible products and substances, targets, and timelines. So the diplomatic conference should be of ceremonial nature and nothing more than it. And we expect that we can stick to this understanding, since this is exactly the language of Article 12 of the UN Resolution 5/14, which only requests the executive director to convene a diplomatic conference for the purpose of adopting the instrument and opening it for signature. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to Iran. Now I would like to give the floor to the United States of America. The U.S., please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Let me start by expressing my thanks to you, Chair, and also to UNEP for all the work you've done in advance of this meeting to get us prepared. I just wanted to ask for a little bit of clarification. So with respect to the proposal to swap the organization of the contact groups, I maybe just have a couple questions about this. In principle, to us, we're actually quite flexible. The issue is we prepared for the meeting using the scenario note proposed, as we understood it, by the chair, and endorsed, we had understood, in the Bureau meetings. And thus, we have brought a team here that is actually prepared, and we have certain people that bounce in between contact groups that have prepared for the meeting and the negotiations with the particular pairing that had been proposed for us to use at the meeting. So we're going to need just a couple of minutes. We just need a little bit of time here to actually think through what this means. As I said, I don't think, in principle, this wouldn't have been a problem for us, but it's not the way that we prepared for the meeting, precisely because it's not the way that had been proposed. So that's the first thing. We need just a couple minutes to sort through this. Secondly, Chair, I would actually like to hear and understand better from you, to have a more detailed readout of what it was that the Bureau did in taking up this issue. So normally the Bureau is the group that we as the parties, as the member states, entrust with working through the organizational details like this. The Bureau has regional representation, and so the idea is that the Bureau comes together, there should be regional buy-in, not on substance, but as it relates to having a good, clear, agreed process that everybody understands moving forward, rather than say what we're doing right now, which is debating the actual processes and organization of contact group schedules in the plenary session. In fact, to us, that's the fundamental and core task of the Bureau, for efficiency to be able to organize ourselves using the structure of the Bureau. So perhaps could I, as we take a moment internally in our delegation to talk about how we are reorganizing ourselves, much like the Africa group said, this current schedule presents some problems to them. Just to be honest, we would have expected that to be raised in the Bureau, debated there, and it would have been much easier to try to find solutions to this issue in the Bureau itself, which to us is the actual purpose of the Bureau. So I'd specifically request, Chair, that you provide us some flavor of what went on in the Bureau that has led us to where we are. And this delegation and perhaps others will then have a few minutes to sort of give a little bit of consideration to this proposal to change the organization from what we expected coming into this meeting. And then finally, Chair, could I ask you to please clarify specifically, I had heard Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Arab group make a suggestion with respect to Article 6. Could you please clarify, and it was a procedural related request as I understood it, if I could ask you to please clarify our path forward on that. Thank you.
And I thank you, the US, the United States. Now I give the floor to Iraq. Yes.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. My delegation would like at the outset to express its high gratitude for your able organization and leadership of this meeting. And we would also like to thank and appreciate the state of Switzerland for their efforts in the generous hosting of this important meeting and for all the facilitation made to the different delegations. I would like to commend the exceptional preparations by UNEP as well and the Executive Secretariat for all the efforts undertaken to facilitate this meeting. At a time when my delegation would like to support the statement on behalf of the Arab group by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, especially with regard to item 6 of your text, which in our opinion does not include a substance that is in direct relation to the title of the item, which is supporting consumer and production processes. And here we would like to support substantive discussions in this regard. We are keen at this meeting to meet a great deal and to achieve an agreement with regard to plastics pollution that is balanced and that includes joint responsibilities and roles. This can only be achieved with a spirit of flexibility and realism, and we need to abandon all prejudices that are not directly related to the core issues of plastic pollution. We are all after one aim, and we need to put aside our differences in order to achieve consensus. Important principles such as the sovereign right of the use of natural resources of each country and the differentiated responsibility between developed and developing nations, these are all core elements that will enable success, and this has been the case for all those who preceded us in this process. I will leave aside all the technical aspects of our interventions, Mr. Chairperson, to all the respective contact groups. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
And I thank you, Iraq. And now I will give the floor to Senegal. Please, Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. And good morning to everybody. My delegation would like to begin by thanking Switzerland for hosting this important conference, and we do hope that it will lead to success here in Geneva. We align ourselves with the statement made by Ghana on behalf of the Africa Group regarding contact groups 1 and 3 and their meeting simultaneously. The United States are right to have raised that issue and to have referred to the Bureau. And in fact, that is why we're also taking the floor now in our capacity as representative of Africa in the Bureau. This was raised within the Bureau following a letter sent to the Secretariat and the Chair by Ghana. So Africa has submitted its views to the Bureau, and we do expect those views to be taken into account. I think that when delegates or representatives of groups take the floor and express concerns, those concerns should be taken into account. This might not be the right place to do so, but it is an issue that could have been addressed some time ago. But we accept the proposal made by the Chair regarding the contact groups, so as to address the issue of contact groups 1 and 3 meeting simultaneously. Thank you.
I thank you very much, Senegal. I thank you very much, dear colleagues, for your comments. It has taken us 3 years to come here to Geneva, and we are a few days to make history and to start working as soon as possible to make that possible. About the organization of work, it has been brought to the Bureau. We've been working together with the Bureau about the organization of work for this resume session. It was also presented a draft scenario note to the members of the Bureau, also to work on that clear picture, so to say, for this session. Based on those discussions, prolonged meetings also with the Bureau on organization of work, the Secretariat and I will work on the schedule that we have presented. We have received also, and thank you very much to the African group and from Ghana, the coordination, their proposals, and the proposals could be adjusted with too much moving of the schedules, because we are moving the provisions that are were going to be considered the same day, for today and tomorrow. And that's the proposal, so we adjust in that sense. So Group 1 and Group 3 won't meet at the same time. And that also could apply for tomorrow. And it's the same. Tomorrow is just to change, to swap two of the contact groups, to have to take the proposal from Africa, not to meet at the same time 1 and 3. About Article 6 and any other provision that we are going to deal with in the contact groups, we have to give it the chance of negotiation. We have to start from some place. And my proposal, as you have seen in the scenario note, is that we cover all provisions in these 4 days, all provisions. And I have mentioned also in my remarks here in plenary that any issue that will require extra discussions, also the contact groups and the co-chairs of the contact groups will have that flexibility to identify the need of an informal setting to start working with those specific issues. So having said that, I will also add that we will keep working. We are meeting the Bureau every day, in a daily basis, to assess, to evaluate our progress, and accordingly to work also on the organization of work, including also the schedule. There are different alternatives the moment you want to allocate the different articles. And difficult. It's not easy to find the perfect one. Of course, there will be issues here and there. But of course, we can work together with the Bureau in that regard. So having said that, once again, I will propose to change to swap actually contact group 4 with contact group 2 today and tomorrow, so contact group 1 and 3 don't meet together. So I could, where is it? Oh, 2 and 3 no. So the schedule for today could be, if you agreed, that 2 and 3 work at the same time, parallelly, this morning, and 1 and 4 works in the afternoon, and in the evening will be 2 and 3 today. And tomorrow will be in the morning 1 and 4. In the afternoon will be contact group 2 and 3, and in the evening it will be here, 1 and 4 tomorrow. Once again, I ask for your flexibility and constructiveness to accept this and move into the negotiation contact groups where we can also raise our ideas, our suggestions on these matters. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. As it's the first time that I take the floor, may I thank you, the UNEP Secretariat, and the government of Switzerland for having us here for this final round of our negotiations. We are always very supportive, as we have always been, of requests made by smaller delegations from developing countries, especially when it comes to having a schedule that would accommodate their need in terms of representation, and the fact that having less delegates that are able to participate in some discussions lead us to having some reforms or changes in our schedule that would best accommodate them. Brazil has always defended consensus as a mode of work here in the INC and elsewhere, and we believe that the best way to achieve consensus is to be very inclusive and to have all delegations as possible in all our discussions. We're also mindful of the fact that it was pointed out by another delegation that there might be a need to have some time in order to reorganize the work of each delegate. So, of course, I think we can always make room for that as well. But just to say that we support not only your decision, but the request from the African group. What I would propose further in order for us, because this is already a change, so people will have to adapt to it, that we don't change the order of provisions in each contact group, because then we would be creating a lot of havoc. So I understand that the only thing that we are changing here is just having contact groups 1 and 4 meeting at the same time and 2 and 3, but not changing the order of provisions that we will be discussing in each contact group. I also support what you said about giving the opportunity for all contact groups to discuss all provisions. I think this will be very much needed. And there was one delegation that mentioned that it is important that everybody has access to the information about informals where members will participate. We believe that it's important that all members are able to participate in all informals that are scheduled. It is difficult to anticipate each and every member's interests in specific articles, so it's better just to keep it open for delegations and having this information available for everybody. I would then probably recommend that the best way to do this is via the app, and also have the reformed schedule as we decided upon now to be also available in the app so that we can all follow this on an equal basis. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much. Brazil. I can see in the list the United States. Would you like to take the floor again? The US? Please.
Yes,
Please.
thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick points. I think the first is, having had a few moments to think about it, we are okay with changing the pairing of the contact groups, so this delegation can be flexible on that. I would just make two other points, I think. So I understand essentially you are now pairing, your pairs are contact group 2 and 3 together, and then 1 and 4 together. Just to say for us, and probably for some other delegations, that means we're changing how we're deploying our personnel. So our preference would be throughout the week and the negotiations that we continue to pair them in the same way, if you see what I mean. So I did just want to say that. I know you're not deciding the entire schedule of the week here, but if we start switching them back or changing the pairings, it once again, I think, is sort of disruptive to the coverage. But we're flexible in terms of how you move forward with this. I also appreciate your comment about the Bureau, but just that would be my final comment, is it would be our expectation that in the future that the Bureau is able to sort out. I believe that's what you just said a few moments ago, Chair, but to talk about this scheduling, to work it out in the Bureau rather than having the debate in the plenary itself. And that was the point that I was making before, but I just wanted to emphasize that. I think it's a much more efficient and frankly appropriate way for us to proceed, because in fact that's why we agreed to establish the Bureau in the first place. Thank you, Chair.
And I thank you very much to the U.S. for your flexibility. Thank you very much. And also we will be working with the Bureau, as I mentioned. I can see in my list Trinidad and Tobago. Please, Trinidad and Tobago, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And regarding the matter on the revision of the scheduling, as a small team, we have organized our work and internal coordination based on the previously agreed schedule. Each member of our two-person delegation has been assigned to follow specific contact groups and thematic areas accordingly. Any substantive changes to this structure at this stage presents very logistical and strategic challenges for us, as it disrupts our ability to effectively engage and contribute to the negotiations. We therefore request that due consideration be given to the operational realities faced by these small delegations and urge that we maintain the consistency of the schedule to allow for meaningful and effective negotiations. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, Trinidad and Tobago. Well, thank you very much, dear colleagues, and thank you also for your flexibility, your comments, all of them, of course. We need to take it into account to keep working that way, in that constructive way, during this session 5.2. So with that change, and I think with that swap of the contact groups, not the provisions, of course, I can take it this as, okay, you are fine with that? I hear no objections, then it is so decided. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, the committee has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 3C on organization of work. Distinguished delegates, the committee will now consider Agenda Item 4 on the preparation of the international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. As I mentioned earlier, I invite members from regional groups and groups of members to submit any statements in writing through the INC in session document platform, which is now available, as I said. Sorry. Yes, sorry for that. Thank you very much. As I noted in my scenario note, opportunities for observers' interventions in the formal intergovernmental process is limited. After statements by regional groups and groups of members, 30 minutes will be allocated to hear from observers representing different broad constituencies, and the online document platform also will be available for observers to share written statements. I will now open the floor for statements from observers, starting with intergovernmental organizations, followed by UN system entities, and followed by non-governmental organizations. Please, and I say please, limit your statements to 2 minutes. We have put in place a dedicated quoting system for observers. Introductions on how to use this system have been made available on the dedicated observer seats on the ground floor of the plenary hall. Please follow these instructions if you wish to request for the floor, and Feel free to approach any of the Secretariat staff in the room if you require assistance. Once again, please keep your intervention short and focused. As I mentioned previously, observers speaking for alliances, coalitions, and groups will be given priority. I see on the list the International Chamber of Commerce, and will be mic 16. Please, you have the floor, ICC. We will go to the next speaker. That is the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, mic 51. Microphone, please. It's mic 51.
Thank you, Chair. The catastrophic human rights impacts of a sustainable and principled plastic production are undeniable and pose an unacceptable risk. In its recent advisory opinion on climate change, the International Court of Justice found that states have a duty to prevent significant harm to the environment now and in the future. An ambitious treaty addressing the full life cycle of plastics must advance human rights, including the right to a healthy environment. This can be achieved through, first, a just transition that upholds human rights and benefits people disproportionately affected by plastic production and pollution, control of chemicals of concern in plastics, and safeguards against substitutions, reduction targets for plastic production, and addressing legacy pollution. Mandatory disclosure of health and safety information related to plastic production. Equitable and affordable access by all states to the environmentally sustainable technologies with robust mechanisms to protect scientific inquiry against conflict of interest. And lastly, a transparent and adequately resourced financial mechanism to support equitable implementation of the treaty. The Plastic Treaty should reflect human rights obligations by explicitly integrating them in Article 10 on just transition. The human right to participation must also be upheld at INC 5.2. It is necessary that decisions are made in a transparent, inclusive, and accountable manner with the participation of observers. Delegates here today have the historic chance to design measures to end plastic pollution, advance sustainable development, and uphold human rights. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, and I ask, please, the speakers to keep their statements within 2 minutes. Now, I'd like to give the floor to the local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution, and it's mic 52.
Thank you, Chair. I'm taking the floor on behalf of the local and subnational governments coalition to end plastic pollution, coordinated by ICLEI, the government of Quebec and the government of Catalonia, the Global Cities Hub, and more than 100 signatories. The role and objectives of the coalition are clear since the very beginning of the INC process. We express a strong commitment towards the adoption of an ambitious international instrument on plastic pollution that must include the essential role of local and subnational governments as key actors. The instrument needs a whole of government and whole of society approach. We are at the front foot of combating plastic pollution. We have in-depth knowledge of local issues and often have specific regulatory powers and the ability to enhance implementation and enforce actions. Therefore, the future instrument needs to have a clear recognition of local and subnational governments. This is why we welcome the inclusion of local and subnational governments in Article 8 and 12 of the Chair's text. The Waste Management, Article 8.2, highlights the role of the subnational level in addressing plastic pollution. And the Capacity Building and Multi-Level Cooperation, Article 12.2, explicitly mentions local and subnational governments as partners of national governments. We have proposed additional language, which is available on the platform in annex to this statement. It is also critical that the future Secretariat of the instrument is mandated and resourced to work directly with local and subnational governments, not only through national challenges. This will be vital for building capacity, coordinating action, and ensuring consistent implementation. So, here our closing message. We urge negotiators to maintain and strengthen the role of local and subnational governments in the final text. And we call for the future Secretariat to be enabled to work directly with them, not just as implementers, but as partners in co-creating solutions. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the Youth Plastic Action Network, mic 40.
Thank you, Chair. We speak on behalf of the Youth Plastic Action Network, a global platform for youth engagement in the plastics treaty process. From day one, our message has been simple and urgent. We need a treaty that protects human health, our shared ecosystems, and the rights of future generations. At this decisive moment, there is no middle ground. We either conclude with a strong, scientific-driven treaty that addresses the full life cycle of plastics, or we report back to UNEP that we have collectively failed to deliver on Resolution 5.14. Plastic pollution may not kill instantly, but it's already costing our lives and futures. Today, children are born with microplastics in their blood, and microplastics are already being found in fish that are sold on grocery store shelves. If we fail to deliver the treaty, healthcare systems will be strained under rising cancers and toxic exposures. Billions will be spent managing pollution instead of preventing it, and oceans could hold more plastic than fish, collapsing coastal economies and food securities. Entire industries risk becoming stranded as we delay the transition to a clean industry.
Plastic pollution does not respect borders or generations. A weak treaty will not protect any country from the social, economic, and environmental consequences that are to follow. Many of you will not see that world, but we, the children and youth of today, your children and your grandchildren will. We will inherit governments that failed to act when they could, societies burdened by pollution and debt, and planetary resources pushed beyond repair. We call on member states, seize this moment, commit to binding reduction targets, embed human rights and intergenerational equity throughout the treaty, and build strong financial mechanisms for implementation and capacity building. Stand with ambition. Deliver the treaty that the world desperately needs and the future deserves. Thank you.
I thank you very much for your intervention to Youth Plastic Action Network. Please, now I would like to give, thank you, please. I would like to give now the floor to Women's Working Group of Ending Plastic Pollution, and it will be mic 5.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, colleagues and friends. I'm Rabeb Alwi from Tunisia, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Women Working Group on Ending Plastic Pollution. We gather here in Geneva today with a shared mission to end plastic pollution, but we must be honest that this is not an environmental crisis, it's a human health emergency, and it is a justice issue. Scientific studies now confirm that microplastics have been found in human placentas on both the maternal and the fetal sides. They have also been detected in newborns' forced vomit. Exposure begins before birth, and its consequences may last a lifetime. This is not an abstract. This is personal. This is generational. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by plastic pollution through caregiving roles, informal labor, and daily use of products containing toxic additives. Endocrine disrupting chemicals in plastics are damaging reproductive health, increasing infertility, and other endocrine diseases, as well as contributing to children being born with disabilities. These are lived realities. And yet, in the current non-paper, gender equality and women's rights are barely mentioned. We must ask, how can we build a treaty that protects people if it doesn't name those most affected? We urge this assembly to take bold, binding action and to call for a human rights-based approach to the treaty, limit on plastic production, and a ban on chemicals and polymers of concern. Restriction on internationally added microplastic, including in cosmetics and cleaning supplies, a global harmonized system of chemicals transparency and traceability, design criteria that eliminate harmful substances, a dedicated financial mechanism to support global science.
I thank you very much for your intervention, for your statement. Dear colleagues, now I would like to give the floor to the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastic Pollution, and it is mic 55.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Abraham Francis of the Ganyankahaga, and I speak on behalf of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Plastics, the representative voice of Indigenous peoples within these negotiations. We are disappointed in the absence of meaningful references to and affirmation of the rights of Indigenous peoples within the Chair's text, and propose immediate action to address this critical oversight. We call on states to affirm and actively promote Indigenous peoples' rights, including our right to self-determination, ensuring the full, effective, equitable, and direct participation of Indigenous peoples in decision-making and implementation of the treaty, as collective rights holders, not to be conflated with other stakeholders as affirmed within the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Strong measures across the full life cycle, including phasing down fossil fuel extraction and production of plastics and chemicals. Center human health, planet health, and justice for all harmed communities across the plastic life cycle, including just transition and development and implementation of the National Action Plan. Establish financial mechanisms to ensure justice and enable just and equitable transition. Establish an independent expert advisory body to inform treaty implementation that ensures the equitable and ethical participation of Indigenous peoples and knowledge holders. For millennia, Indigenous people have lived our lives in balance with the natural world, establishing and practicing non-toxic, truly circular, and life-giving systems. Our ancestral wisdom and knowledge systems offer vital solutions to the plastics crisis, including other environmental crises, addressing its entire life cycle from extraction to disposal. Thank you.
And I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the to the Scientist Coalition for an Effective Plastic Treaty, mic 58.
The Scientist Coalition for an Effective Plastics Treaty are 450 independent experts from 65 countries. 58 of us are here, because we're concerned that the misrepresentation of the science of plastic pollution by some will result in a treaty that is unable to protect our planet and future generations from plastic pollution. So today, we reiterate where the scientific evidence stands. Plastic pollution, including nano, micro, and macroplastics, plastic chemicals and air pollutants, are leaked and released along the full life cycle of plastics, starting with extraction of fossil carbon and biomass feedstocks, and production to plastic removal technologies. Plastic pollution directly and indirectly harms human and environmental health, as confirmed by decades of international research, including from the biggest plastic-producing countries. To achieve an effective treaty, the science highlights the following 6 priorities. First, a legally binding treaty with the scope to cover the full life cycle of plastics. Second, mandatory obligations to prevent plastic pollution at source. Third, adequate and accessible financial, technical and capacities to support to enable all countries to meet their treaty obligations. Fourth, safe and sustainable production and consumption, including phasing out groups of plastic chemicals and products of concern. Fifth, globally harmonised criteria for essential use, safety, sustainability and transparency to provide clarity to governments and businesses, enable efficient treaty implementation and incentivise innovative, trusted, safer and more sustainable materials and markets. Lastly, a legitimate and just treaty. The treaty's legitimacy hinges on contributions from expert groups with broad expertise and transparency, representation and conflict of interest mitigation policies. This will also enable just transition. The science is undeniable.
I thank you very much. I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to the International Alliance of Waste Pickers. Please, International Alliance of Waste Pickers, you have the floor.
No. Somos nosotros, no.
It's microphone 59.
Yes. Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I'm one of the over 40 million waste pickers around the world. The number continues to increase because there is unstoppable increase in plastic waste. The International Alliance of Waste Pickers thanks member states' will to pursue negotiations this week on a plastics treaty. We need it more than ever. We're pleased to see the chair's proposed text from last December as a basis for negotiations. Nevertheless, we have deep concerns in the current text, which we hope to see resolved this week. Our Article 10 on a just transition has been proposed as a voluntary provision in the latest version, despite the overwhelming support of member states to make it obligatory. Just transition should be compulsory. Otherwise, it will not be implemented. Furthermore, we cannot achieve a just transition without effective funding mechanisms. We need an independent structure from the current global environmental facility. We need private sector contributions based on the polluter pays principle. This is in line with the Cali Global Fund model. We need a simplified direct mechanism which is transparent and ensures good governance and accountability. A significant proportion should be allocated to needs identified by waste pickers, cooperatives and other groups. They should not be seen merely as beneficiaries, but as agents for change. If you don't have a just transition, then you will just have waste. The speaker is interrupted by the chair.
Su declaración. Y ahora, now I would like to give the floor to the International Engineering Association, and that will be microphone 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, my name is Greg Skelton, and I'm speaking on behalf of the International Council of Chemical Associations and the Global Partners for Plastic Circularity. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this intervention. Mr. Chair, the global plastics industry has been actively engaged throughout the INC process. We champion an agreement that is inclusive of countries, effectively combats plastic pollution, promotes the circularity of plastics, and enables society to continue to benefit from plastics. Circularity goes beyond recycling. It involves designing products for reuse and recyclability, improving collection and sorting systems, especially for the 2.7 billion people lacking access to waste collection, and advancing innovations that transform used plastics into new products. Over the course of the past 5 negotiations, industry has consistently shared our ambition and been clear in our positions, which are available on our website at plasticcircularity.org. We have heard and responded to concerns from governments by developing tools that demonstrate the industry's commitment to transparency, including the ICCA Plastics Additives Database, which provides details on regulation and use of the 4,549 plastic additives verified in commerce. And we continue to invest in innovations in product design, collection, recycling, and reuse of plastics to accelerate the transition towards a circular economy. As the final INC session opens, there is a unique opportunity for alignment with governments and civil society, including the private sector, to address plastic waste in our environment. The perfect should not be the enemy of the possible. ICCA encourages governments to focus on common ground and deliver an agreement that is practical, implementable, and achievable. Industry is eager to work in partnership with the governments to help solve the global challenge of plastic pollution while accelerating the transition to a more circular economy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I thank the International Council of Chemical Associations. Now I would like to give the floor to the International Chamber of Commerce, this mic 16. So it's the International Chamber of Commerce, microphone 16.
Mr. Chair, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, my name is Raylene Martin and I speak on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, the world's largest business organization. We thank the INC Secretariat for their tireless efforts and the Government of Switzerland for hosting us here in Geneva, a fitting location for international cooperation and multilateral progress. The global business community stresses the urgent need to conclude an effective and workable agreement that meets the UNEP 5.2 mandate and matches the urgency of the plastic pollution crisis. We are at a defining moment. INC 5.2 must deliver clear direction and a framework to accelerate action by all sectors toward a future free from plastic pollution. The world is watching, and the credibility of multilateralism depends on what we achieve here. It is imperative to agree now on the treaty's contours with a smart mix of complementary measures that have the right hooks to strengthen the agreement over time. In this regard, we highlight 4 priorities. First, a fully circular approach must be central. The treaty should guide product design for circularity, promoting reuse, recycling, and environmentally sound management. Waste management must be a core obligation with flexibility for national circumstances. Second, focus should be on plastic products with the highest risk of environmental leakage, based on a common evidence-based framework that is application-specific and considers national and socio-economic realities. Third, innovation is essential. The agreement must support new technologies and business models across the plastics value chain to enable rapid transformation and empower businesses of all sizes. Lastly, success hinges on effective means of implementation that support accelerated business action and take into account the needs of SMEs. This agreement must provide industry with the
I
clarity
thank you very
and
much.
confidence to invest in
I thank you very much for your statement. Now, I would like to give the floor to the coalition of NGOs from West Asia, and that's microphone 19.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegate, colleague, and friend, allow me to deliver my intervention in Arabic. سيد الرئيس، أنا ماري تيريز سيف، ممثلة مجموعة المنظمة.
My name is Marie-Thérèse Saif. I represent the group of NGOs from West Asia. Plastic pollution is an environmental crisis which jeopardizes the lives of millions in this region. Plastic which is not managed or recycled causes a number of ills. We cannot wait to deal with plastic pollution. We cannot hold off negotiations. We call on nations to defend their peoples. We hope that negotiations will reach a successful conclusion here. Our group stands ready to support delegations and the future treaty. We call on everyone to respect their commitments. This must not be just a symbolic treaty. It must be fully implementable and ensure justice, solidarity, and cooperation between peoples. We cannot wait any longer. Think about current and future generations. Think about the right to live in a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. You cannot procrastinate. We need a treaty here and now. Thank you.
And I thank you very much for your statement. Now I would like to give the floor to the International Engineering Associations, and will be microphone 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretariat, and thank you to the Government of Switzerland. My name is Conor Carlin, and I'm here representing the Society of Plastics Engineers, a global volunteer organization with 65,000 stakeholders around the world. We stand at the intersection of science, research, industry, and society, committed to advancing polymer innovation while promoting responsible management of plastics resources. Plastics have transformed the modern world by delivering lightweight, durable, and cost-effective solutions in medicine, food preservation, renewable energy, clean water, mobility, and countless other fields. These materials have been integral in reducing emissions, increasing energy efficiency, and improving the quality of life. We are equally aware, however, that the growing volume of plastic waste, mismanaged and polluting the environment, presents urgent challenges that must be addressed with integrity and urgency. As engineers, innovators, and problem solvers, we are uniquely positioned to develop the next generation of materials and technologies that enable greater recyclability, biodegradability, and resource efficiency. We believe that innovation must go hand in hand with responsibility. Our work is guided by a vision of circularity, where plastic products are designed with their full life cycle in mind, supported by robust collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructure. We support scalable solutions from advanced mechanical and chemical recycling to closed-loop systems and data-driven waste traceability. We also recognize that no one single actor can solve this challenge alone. Collaboration across industries, governments, academia, and civil society is essential, and we actively promote open dialogue, knowledge sharing, and capacity building to ensure that all regions can benefit from equitable access to technology and sustainable solutions. The Society of Plastics Engineers reaffirms its commitment to being part of the solution, championing science-based policies, fostering innovation with purpose, and accelerating progress toward a future where plastics are used wisely, recovered efficiently, and managed sustainably. Materials and plastics are not the enemy. Misuse and mismanagement are. Let us engineer a better path forward. Thank you.
And I thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Break Free from Plastics, and that's microphone 1, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Esteemed delegates, I am John Beard, Jr., and I'm speaking on behalf of the Break Free from Plastics movement and the United States Environmental Justice Delegation. I come to you from the belly of the beast in Port Arthur, Texas, a cancer cluster, thanks to the petrochemical industry. Port Arthur is on the front lines of toxic plastic pollution because of a history of discrimination against communities of color and low-income communities. This is a human rights issue, and it stretches all the way back to the dawn of European colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. Let's be clear. These negotiations have been captured by the fossil fuel and petrochemical industries. Their unchecked production of plastics is accelerating a crisis that jeopardizes the climate, biodiversity, human health, and the planet's ability to sustain life. Without decisive action and significant reductions in plastic production, the harm already experienced by countless communities like mine will only intensify. A treaty that does not cap plastic production, eliminate toxic chemicals, and ensure a just transition for those most impacted is a treaty destined to fail. We must confront the ongoing environmental racism experienced in communities like mine and stop the scourge of waste colonialism in the global South. We must reject toxic waste-to-energy schemes and polluting technologies like so-called chemical recycling, prioritizing instead development of safe, toxic-free reuse and refill systems and the rights of waste pickers, indigenous peoples, and frontline communities. While we should be guided by consensus, when consensus cannot be reached, countries must have the ability to vote on substantive issues, ensuring that deadlocks do not continue to derail progress. While my community is on the front lines of environmental injustice and toxic pollution, micro and nanoplastics poison people no matter how far from the lines you may live.
I thank you very much for your statement. Thank you. Please, dear colleagues. Thank you, please. Thank you very much for sharing these interventions. And now I would like to invite the Secretariat to provide information on the timing and location of the meetings of the contact groups that we will start this afternoon at 3 p.m. Please, Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm the new schedule for today, CG Contact Group 1 will meet from 3 to 6 p.m. in room 19. Contact Group 4 will meet from 3 to 6 p.m. in room 18. Contact Group 2 will meet from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 18. And Contact Group 3 from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 19. Thank you.
I thank you very much, the Secretariat, and we will be meeting, as I announced before, working with the Secretariat and the Bureau on the scheduling for today and the next days. And distinguished delegates, this brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. We have a lot of work ahead of us over these 10 days. Thank you, distinguished delegates, for being conscientious of the time as we embark on completing the work of the INC at this resume session. Let's treat each other with sorry, please, dear colleagues. Oh, I see Ghana asking the floor. Please, Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
Could you please take a seat? We haven't finished the session yet. Please. Thank you. Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We kindly request that the information is repeated. Thank you.
Please, Secretariat.
Thank you. Just to note, this information will also be reflected on the website as well as on the mobile app. So I'll repeat more slowly. Contact Group 1 will meet from 3 to 6 p.m. this afternoon in room 19. Contact Group 4 also from 3 to 6 p.m. this afternoon in room 18. Contact Group 2 from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 18. And finally, contact group 3 from 7:30 p.m. onwards in room 19. I hope this clarifies. Thank you.
I thank you, Secretariat, and thank you, dear colleagues. And once again, please, let's treat with each other with kindness and respect as we build a unified way forward. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.